Hey everyone, this is Nate, and this is the Nader Tater channel. Alright, right here I have a MoFi 5500, and this one is the EM9191 modem in there. And so I have done some testing with this one as well as a lot of other 5G router gateway devices. And MoFi contacted me after my last test because it did not perform as well as they thought it would, or even as I thought it would, really, compared to some of the other third-party routers I've tested. Some Peplink, Cheshire Tech Repair, and other units out there from like T-Mobile and Verizon. They said there is a update that was coming out, and that is out now. It's actually been out for close to a month. I just haven't got around to testing it till now. And that is a firmware update for both the router portion as well as for the cellular module in there as well. So let me show you what that test is. Now it has a new feature that is a boost feature. So this is a speed boost specifically for the cellular connection, and I have not tested it yet, so that's what I'm going to do in this video, and we'll see if it actually helps my connection relative to the baseline or the old firmware. So first let's go into the website and just show you what the firmware is that I have on here. Okay, so here we are. I went to MoFiNetwork.com and then went to their support area and went to downloads, and here you can see I'm at their MoFi 5500 downloads page. Now they do have a YouTube video that tells you a little bit more how to do the firmware update. Certainly the easiest is to do the what they call a remote update, but it just means have the device go in there and find the latest download firmware package and download it that way, or you can manually do it. But if you go into the settings, which is 192.168.10.1, and then you go into the I think the system settings or administration settings down on the bottom, you can go in there and do this update. So the one that I did for the firmware is this 4.6.7 STD, or IS standard, and that was released March 2nd of 2023. And if you look here in the change logs, you can see that the top item there was added module speed boost option that allows faster module cellular speeds, and that's under the MoFi internal modem and then module speed boost. I'll show you that in a minute here, and I'll turn it on and off for the testing just to see what it does. But there was, I guess we'll see that in the settings, but I think there was an asterisk there that says that it might hurt stability. So I don't know exactly what that does, but we'll do some testing here and find out how it compares to the past. The one thing I will say is for these firmware updates, the devices are kind of picky with it. I've had issues with doing the update and then either not being able to log back in to it, or having issues with it not connecting back to the cellular connection. And that there are notes in here that tell you what to do there. There's even a full recovery, which I've had to do, where it doesn't even let you log back into it. So you have to do like a hard recovery. I had to actually download this recovery file and flash that just so I could connect to it. So if you do the firmware flash and it's not acting right, do go to their website, read through it step by step. You do have to follow all the steps in order to recover it and get it back up there. You do have to do a factory default reset, so you lose any of your settings. So you might want to save those or screenshot or make notes of them before you do that as well. So that's for the firmware, which I think is on the router portion. And then there's also a actual module firmware in here, and this one is newer as well. Let me keep scrolling until I find it here. Alright, yeah, so here it is. So a few days after that main firmware, there's the module firmware update, and for this one it is 03.10.07, and so that one I also flashed into here, and that one is active. So as of right now, this is the latest firmware available on here, and let's go do some speed testing up in the attic for it. Alright, so now we are up in the third floor loft. This is my location for the best signal. I'm connected to the 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi on the MoFi, and now I'm just logging into it at the 192.168.10.1. Alright, so here in the signal strength, you can see I have B66 as the main LTE. This is a Verizon home internet SIM card, And then I have B2 for secondary LTE, and then B5 as well. And then for the 5G, I have N77, which is Verizon C-band. All right, so this is the speed band lock. And now you have to do this before you turn on the module speed boost, because once that's on, it doesn't let you do this for some reason. And so the first thing we do here is just go in there and select what carrier we have. Yes, it's on module 1. We'll let it do 2 tests and then include 5G. Pick the 3 bands with the highest recommended. We'll go ahead and start that scan. It does take a while to actually run, so I'll just let it go through and do its thing, and then we'll come back and do a test and then do the module speed boost. All right, so it took a little while, but the band testing is complete. So you can see here the specs that it got for all my LTE bands, as well as for my 5G bands. And you can see that it locked on to B5, B13, and B2. And then I'm sure it did N77 for 5G. Let's go over here and see. All right, so on the advanced signal page, it looks like I'm on band B13 and band B2 for LTE. I think last time before I did the selective band, I think I had band B66 as well, but I do not have it here anymore, and they unchecked it, so it's not an option. Then I am on N77 here, C-band still. So let's go to the speed test and see how it does. All right, so there we go. That is a speed test, and this is without the boost. So let's go turn on the boost and see what it does. All right, so just because I want to give it a fair shake here, let me go ahead and turn back on band 66, because I just don't believe that it might help me to have that off if it was going to aggregate that in addition to the other ones as well. All right, there it goes. Now we got B66, B13, and B2. So I think that will help me to actually have that. All right, so not a crazy change, but I do think that improved me a little bit. Let's go back here and see what it was before. So it helped download a little bit. It hurt upload slightly. So not a crazy change, but I think it's for the better. All right, so let's go in here to the module speed boost page here. And this is where it tells you that little bit of a warning that, the band lock will not work and you might get a little bit less stable here. And let's just save it and see what it does. All right, so I'm not seeing a big change there in speed at all. For this one, let me just test it again and make sure. All right, so I'm seeing a little bit of improvement there with namely upload speed. You got a couple megabits per second faster. Otherwise, it looks fairly similar still. All right, so I'm just turning off the selective band locking just to make sure that isn't causing any problems. I still have the boost on, but we'll just look here and see what bands it picks by default. All right, it really looks like it picked the same thing, B13, B66, and B2, as well as N77. All right, we finally made some headway there with the download, almost hit 200. Check off the speed boost to make sure that I can notice a difference. Last time to this time is really the upload is a big percentage change there. Otherwise, I'm not really seeing a big change just due to the boost. So let's get this Verizon SIM card out, put T-Mobile in here, and test this Verizon SIM in the Chester Cheetah. All right, so I just tested this in the Chester Cheetah, and I got 164 megabits per second download and 17 megabits per second upload. So let's see what we get here with the MoFi. I have all of the bands allowed. I'm not doing any band locking because it didn't really seem to pan out last time. So I have this kind of back to the default settings. I did do a module reset. And this is a T-Mobile SIM card now, T-Mobile Business Internet SIM card.
And you can see that, I just grabbed something else here, but it was on, it's on B66 for LTE, as well as a N41 for the 5G. So let's go in here to the speed test and run a new one. Now let's go in here to the speed boost and actually try to boost those speeds and see if it actually helps out at all. Alright, so there we go. You can see that it is still lower than what I'm getting with like the Chester Cheetah device. The boost did again appear to help the upload some, maybe the download a little bit, but still not great.
All right, well, testing is complete, and I do want to thank one of my viewers, Lou, for sharing that MoFi gateway with me for the testing. He's actually loaned it to me for a couple months for testing. He was curious with it and maybe had it as a spare that he could loan it out, so I appreciate that for testing. Looking at the speed here, it's really not a huge improvement with that speed boost or the firmware from what I can tell. You know, MoFi has been very responsive with email support and suggesting firmware updates and any kind of assistance that have been needed. And they've been very optimistic that they could improve it. And they might very well be able to in the future. I have seen firmware be very cantankerous with getting 5G to work correctly. Peplink has had similar issues on some of their devices from my testing, and this one doesn't show that differently. You know, the boost on and off was kind of hard to tell, at least with the immediate change. You know, I gave it a couple minutes to do any kind of reset or repicking of signals, and I did not see any change in the signal specs that are happening. And then if I look at the difference, you know, if you run test to test, you're going to get difference in speed a couple percent very easily. So for the download, maybe it was a slight change, but really upload is maybe where I saw the speed boost feature help out at all, where I would say it was a big enough percentage change that I'm like, yes, that's a change and not just a test to test variation. But that said, even the fastest speed of the MoFi 5500 was slower than taking that exact same SIM card and putting it in the Chester Cheetah right beside it and running the test there. So I'm not seeing the MoFi outperform yet. I think it's still a quality unit, and it has a lot of features and settings that you can change inside there that some of the other gateways don't have, including the Chester Cheetah does not have as many settings. But if you're looking for outright speed, the MoFi 5500 is still not the winner. In fact, it doesn't beat the stock gateways from T-Mobile and Verizon. You know, the biggest difference is on Verizon. The MoFi with the speed boost and latest firmware, it could not top 200 megabits per second download, and you got 6.36 for upload. Whereas the Verizon Arc Cube got 311 down and 21.5 up. So some big changes there in speed between the devices, and I think I look forward to seeing if MoFi can continue to try to improve their performance. All right, as always, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below. Of course, consider giving me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you have not yet.